All right, we're back again. Sorry, don't know why that's happening. We'll just keep making the best of it tonight, all right? And then we will get these difficulties up. I don't know if you guys are having the same problems, if it's our router or if it's something to do with Ustream, but whatever it is, we'll just keep going and hopefully just hang out and wait. Maybe it'll give you a little break there. You know, you can use the potty or whatever you need to do. I don't know. So anyway, if you see me out of my chair, you know where I went. So that's about My Breast Friend, and what we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be giving away a My Breast Friend pillow, and also they came out with their first nursing stool, which is an adjustable stool, which is really awesome too. So they're going to be giving the pillow and the stool, and if you're having twins, we will obviously upgrade that to a twin pillow, right, Joe?
That's
We're going to do a twin pillow. Okay, so don't worry, we've got you covered. If you're having twins, you're going to get the twin pillow. All right, so first of all, let's get right to it. You know, before we go off air again, let's start talking about some topics. First of all, you know, I'd like to bring up something that's been in the news, and it's been coming in droves and questions through either from my blog or in the store. People are very nervous about this week's announcement of the Similac recall, okay? And for those of you who don't know about it, most people do understand and know what's going on with this recall, but for most of you who don't, for any of you that don't know, what they've recalled is about 5 million packages of Similac powdered formula, and the reason they recalled it is they found beetle parts, so these are bug parts, and larvae in some of these cans of formula that could cause gastrointestinal upset in some infants, that could lead to pain and, you know, poor appetite. And I think that there's been a lot of scare and worry for moms out there who are formula feeding. Obviously, look, I am, and people who know me know, I am the biggest breastfeeding advocate out there. You know, I will teach breastfeeding, I advocate breastfeeding. It's hard not to advocate breastfeeding as the #1 choice for feeding your baby. But above and beyond my advocacy of breastfeeding is my advocacy of moms and mom's choice. And it has always been that way for me, whether I was a midwife or now as a lactation consultant. To me, it's all about supporting mothers. And so when moms come into my store and I see them, they'll walk in and they're formula feeding and they'll try to avoid me. Oh my God, here comes that lactation consultant, and are you going to try to convince me to do something else? And very quickly they realize that it is not about convincing them to do something different with their child. My job is to educate and inform and then help you make the right choices for you and for your family, and I do that all the time in the store. So tonight what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the recall, and then also a little bit about if you are formula feeding. And that doesn't mean exclusive either. You know, some of us are breastfeeding and we have to supplement with some formula because we're going back to work and we haven't been able to figure out, you know, how to do the breastfeeding and formula at the same time, exclusive breastfeeding, or choose not to, or just choose to formula feed or weren't able to breastfeed. You're going to have these real questions of like, what do I need to look at? So when it comes to the recall, first of all, just you need to understand that this was like across many countries. You know, these powdered formulas were sold in the US, in Guam, in Puerto Rico, and many other Caribbean countries. So it wasn't just here in the United States that we had this problem. And it's not just Similac. So, you know, you got to understand that this is just a small portion of the amount of recalls that have been around. I think I read something on breastfeeding.com that said between 1982 and 1994, okay, there were 22 significant recalls in infant formula. 7 were classified as by the FDA as potentially life-threatening. Okay, this is really significant, and I think that this is important to know because this Similac recall is not the first, and it definitely won't be the last. So then, what do we need to do to keep our babies safe if we're not going to exclusively breastfeed? First of all, if you do have Similac in your house and it's the powdered kind, make sure that you've gone to our resources page and check out the lot numbers to make sure that you don't have any of this tainted formula in your house and that you're not continuing to feed your baby that. You know, you can find that on our resources page. I think Janet's putting it up for us so that we can all have it. Check your cans, and obviously if you have those cans, you're going to get rid of them, okay? And let's see, I also have the link to the breastfeeding.com page where it talks about the recalls in the past, and you can read about some of these recalls where we've seen things like glass particles and salmonella and other stuff. You know, we got to think about it. Okay, formula is made in a factory, and so obviously there are things that can go wrong. Just like in any other product, when they have recalls or tainted stuff, it can happen with formula. So you need to look at what is going to be the best choice that I can make for my child. Couple things I want to bring up. up, and I do this with my clients in the store, and when they think about feeding infant formula, there are a couple of points you want to consider. First and foremost, okay, beyond just, which one's the safest, think about always considering an organic formula. All right, what is formula made of? It's normally made with cow's milk. And if you think about what you're feeding yourself, usually organic milk, or your toddler, it's organic milk. Most of us are buying organic milk because we know the amount of pesticides and steroids and hormones and antibiotics that are in the in the dairy and then the cow's milk that we drink. And then you go ahead and you give this regular formula that has all of these ingredients in it, and that's their entire diet for the day. And so it's a lot of that going into the baby. So first and foremost, if I was going to feed formula to my child, I would make sure that I was getting something organic with organic ingredients. That's number one, okay? And then if you are doing the organic, the other thing to consider is that if you're doing soy, okay, I don't know how many people really know about soy formula. I gave you a link to Dr. Mercola's website that talks a little bit about the hazards of soy. And I was also reading some information from Marcia Walker, who was talking about about soy formula, and she's one of the leading breastfeeding experts. And in one of the books that she contributed to, she had written some information about soy formula, and I thought it was really, really important for you to hear some of the things about soy and how hazardous and dangerous this could be for an infant. Remember, so much of this is new. We don't have long-term studies to show what is the actual impact of drinking that much soy. Okay, about 25%, and I don't know when this actually came out, but at least 25% of all formula that is fed to babies in the United States right now is soy, okay? And most of it is in the United States. It's much less extensive outside this country. Most of it is here in the United States. Most soy formulas, their first ingredient, if you were to look at it, and I have one here with me, okay, this is Similac Isomil Advanced, it's a soy formula, and when I look at the first ingredient on this can, it's corn syrup, okay, and one of the second ingredients, or the third ingredient, is sugar, okay, so you've got to take a look at what are the ingredients in the food that we're feeding the babies. Corn syrup and sugar is just not a good place to start, so soy is just not my first choice. The other thing about soy, and some of you might know this, just from your moms who are going through menopause. Think about soy. What do we tell menopausal women when they're going through hot flashes and they need to balance their hormones and increase their estrogen levels? We talk about eating more soy because soy does increase phytoestrogen levels in our body. And when we give a baby soy formula, okay, what the research has shown is that babies, and I'll read it directly out of the book for you, it says, infants who are fed soy formula can have circulating phytoestrogen concentrations that are 13,000 to 22,000 times higher than normal levels in early life. Okay, that is significant. That amount of phytoestrogen, okay, that dose represents a 6 to 11-fold higher level of intake, and that is found to cause significant changes and hormone fluctuations in the regular menstrual cycle of a woman. Okay, Dr. Mercola makes it equivalent to taking 5 birth control pills a day. Okay, now, so what is that doing to a little baby that is actually getting that soy formula? I really would consider doing something else. Soy is probably last on the list of my choices when it comes to feeding infant formula. And most of you just don't know this. So if you're feeding your baby soy, I would really start doing some research about it. I've created some links on my website so that you could look a little further into it and make some better choices. The other thing that you need to know about formula, and when we start looking at what is in this formula, is the DHA. Okay, does everybody know what DHA is? DHA is it's a oil that's found naturally found in breast milk to help with brain development and visual acuity. And what happened is about 6 years ago, the formula industry decided that if we add this DHA to infant formula, we can make it more like breast milk, okay? Except that the research that was out there did not support this, in that we don't have conclusive evidence that taking DHA in that type of form actually has the same effect on the baby. What we have seen is that DHA, given in that form, can have very, very similar side effects to what we're seeing right now with this recall, which is gastrointestinal problems, diarrhea, loss of appetite. And, I wonder, as people come in, as I'm talking to more and more people, how much of these gastrointestinal problems are really coming from this specific recall, and how much of it is coming from the DHA that's been added to the formula. It is, almost every commercial formula on the market today has this DHA in it. And the way they make the DHA is they make it in fungus and algae, and it is grown in the fungus and the algae. And the way they extract it from the fungus and the algae is they use solvents like hexane, which is like a rocket fuel, bleach solvents, and acid. And, small amounts of these solvents do get into the formula. And so it's important to understand that this may not be very good for your baby. I mean, to say that small amounts of this are probably all right, we don't know the long-term effects of what does that mean to have that kind of ingredient in your baby's formula. So there's really only one. And if you want to read more about this, I mean, this is stuff that, you can really see. There's a website called cornucopia.org, and I send people there a lot. It's a website for the organic farming. It's a watchdog site for the organic farming industry. And I created a link again on my resource page so you can read. There's a 68-page report talking all about DHA and this particular DHA that's made by a company called Martech, okay? Because people have asked questions, and the questions that came in this week specifically asked about, well, what about the DHA in formula? Is that okay? How about the ones that are in my prenatal vitamins? Are those okay? And what you want to do is look at the label and see, is it by a company called Martech? Because if it is, it's still coming from that algae source, and it has the hexane in it. And you may want to choose something a little bit healthier for you and for your baby. There's one formula on the market that does not contain DHA, and it is an all-organic formula, and that's called Nature's One. That too is on there. And what I did was I provided a link, not because I'm advocating formula feeding, don't get me wrong, but if you are formula feeding, I think this is probably your best choice to look into. And they do have DHA that you can add to it later, because obviously the studies are inconclusive, but the DHA that they use comes from an egg phospholipid rather than from this algae, and it does not use hexane, bleach, and acid. And this is the baby's one. Now, I don't work for this company, so I'm not doing this because I'm endorsing them. I'm just telling you that this is the only one on the market that does not carry that DHA. One thing I want to tell you, because I was a little confused by it myself, and I kind of liked that they did this, I've never seen a formula company actually do this. At the top, and I don't know if you can read it, but at the top, what it says is toddler. Am I going in the wrong direction? Toddler formula. And so many times moms and dads will buy this from me, and they'll say, well, oh my gosh, you gave me the wrong formula. It's actually toddler formula. And that's not true. What it is, it's identical to regular formula, but the company is so much an advocate for breastfeeding for the first year that they don't recommend it for the first year. They recommend breastfeeding for the first year. But if you were to have to give formula, this would be an adequate substitute. Okay, so I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, so, and they have a lot of really good information on their website. So if you are going to formula feed, and I think that it's really important, so many breastfeeding experts don't really even ever address formula as an option. And although we do recommend that you exclusively breastfeed, it is not going to be the choice of every single woman out there. And I had a lady come in not too long ago, and I remember she walked in and she said, well, you're a lactation consultant, and I'm not planning to breastfeed, so I really have nothing to talk to you about. And my answer to her was, well, do you know what a lactation consultant is? And she said, no, what is it? And I said, well, in my opinion, what a lactation consultant is that I am the person that helps you with your milk, whether you're planning to breastfeed or not. Because one way or another, whether you are planning to breastfeed or not, you're going to be dealing with your milk. And we talked a lot about the idea of, can you give colostrum by spoon the first couple days? Yes. Even if you never wanted to latch your baby to the breast. Is it all or nothing? If I'm not going to exclusively breastfeed, is there still some advantage to giving some breast milk to my baby? Absolutely yes. And so the answer to, my question, the answer I give to most of my moms is, give me your goals. Tell me what it is that you're looking for. And, I have probably some a lot of clients out there right now that are watching who sit with me in my office, and they all know the first thing I ask them is, what's your breastfeeding goal? Because this is not my baby, this is your baby. And so it's really important for me to stick to what it is that you're looking to do and help you accomplish your goals. Okay, so that's what this conversation is all about. I don't know where Joe went because I can't see the conversation that's going on and if there's any questions that are actually coming in. So I'm going to keep going because I got tons of questions here, tons of things that are coming in. And we're going to talk a little bit. Let's see. What are some of the first questions that we have here? Sorry. Let's see. Okay. So I have a question here from Krista in Virginia. Hi, Krista. Thank you for submitting your question. And Krista's question was, Mason is 8 months old, and I'm starting to get nervous that someone is going to say something when I nurse in public. Okay, so do I just ignore them, or should I say something back? Okay, this is like a huge topic. Whenever I'm listening to moms talk about nursing in public, like, I don't know if I should breastfeed because I feel really uncomfortable going out with my baby. And, you know, this is a really personal decision. Obviously, some people are more comfortable breastfeeding in public. I was. I mean, I just breastfed anywhere I was. And some people are just not as comfortable. And I don't think that's the thing that should make or break whether you want to breastfeed. And there's some really great nursing covers. I would recommend if you feel uncomfortable, where you feel like the baby might get exposed. You know, the baby tends to latch, and then sometimes they dislatch at the worst possible moment, and you're just exposed there. One of these covers could really help. But I just want you to know one thing, that you have the right to breastfeed in any public place everywhere. Okay, this is your right to do that. And whether you engage with that person or not is definitely up to you and your personality. I know for me, I probably would say something, but for other people, it probably feels better to just ignore it. Remember, you're feeding your baby and you're doing the right thing for your baby, and nobody should be telling you anything other. We don't tell moms who are formula feeding to not bottle feed their baby in public. And if you're doing, for most breastfeeding moms, we're not really exposing ourselves. So I think that it's it's something that you should try to do. I know that for me, when I was breastfeeding, I tried to breastfeed wherever I went. I would take advantage of like sitting in the mall, and I never really exposed myself. My baby was in front of me, but it was obvious that I was breastfeeding. And for me, it was really just to set an example for other nursing moms to say, hey, this is okay, and this is natural, and this is what we should be doing, and we're doing the right things for our kids. So I took advantage of doing that. But if you're the type that doesn't want to engage, it's not worth it. You're not going to change their minds. It's not about them. So I hope that answers your question, Krista. Can somebody find Joe so I could see if there's any questions coming in there? You see anybody? First of all, I got to get to Liza's question, because Liza had a question last week that was very important, and we kept missing over it, and I personally had the same issue. And I want to talk a little bit about breast capacity and this whole idea of uneven breasts, like one breast made more milk than the other. Most people have this, and they're very concerned when it actually comes up, like, is this normal? Okay, so what I want to say to you is that most moms have what I call a dominant side. Okay, and the dominant side is usually going to make more milk than the other side. So as we're breastfeeding, in the beginning with engorgement, you might not notice it. You might, but as time goes on, you will see that one breast can be more, like, significantly more milk than the other side. What I tell moms is that, if it really is the bigger producer, that you treat that breast as the meal. Okay, and then your other breast that makes less milk is sort of like the appetizer or the dessert, okay? So that you can have your meal with the dessert, but you can't have dessert without the meal. And so that's how you're going to kind of treat this whole process. Some people, it's very hard to make them even. It's more of just how much breast capacity you have in each breast, and it's very common to all mothers. I had it so significantly, I made, almost twice as much on my right side than on my left side. And my first baby, Jade, she was, what a stinker. Okay, so by the time she was 4 months old, she just said, what's with this left side? It's not even worth the hassle. So she decided, I'm not breastfeeding on that side. And I struggled because I would breastfeed her on one side, and then I would try to switch her to the other side, and she would just totally reject it. And what I didn't know at the time was that, as the milk starts to dry up, as you stop breastfeeding on one side, and they are independent, the milk goes from tasting sweet to tasting salty. So you can imagine as days go on of doing this and not the baby rejecting one side, then they're even more likely to reject that side because it just doesn't taste the same, okay? By the time she was 4 months old, I just gave up. It wasn't worth fighting with her, and I exclusively breastfed my first baby on my right breast for 9 months, okay? So for all of you out there who think you're not making enough milk, okay, and for those twin moms out there who say, you know, how can I nurse twins? You have two, so you have a spare, okay? You can make enough milk on one breast to exclusively breastfeed your baby. And I was not one of those people who made enough milk to feed the town. Unlike my sister who made a ton of milk, I was always jealous of her because she could always make a lot of milk. I made enough milk just to feed my baby and had a very hard time getting much more than that. And that's just sort of a genetic thing in most cases that you can't do. Okay, so I hope that answered your question there. We have a question here from Amy in Ontario, Canada. Hi, Amy. And the question is, let's see, I can't seem to pump for an emergency freezer supply of breast milk, okay? And I've tried with both the Medela Swing electric pump and hand expressing, but it just doesn't seem to work. I'd really like to have a supply in case of emergency. Should I rent a hospital grade pump, or is there some technique I'm missing? Very, very good question. Okay, so Amy, first of all, when we talk about freezer supply, and I go over this a lot in my program, I have a program called Breast Pumps and Briefcases. It's an audio CD that will teach you everything you need to know about freezer supply, about going back to work, whatever it is that you need to know to be able to pump and breastfeed and get through that last year of working and continuing to breastfeed your baby. I talk a lot about freezer supply and how little of it you actually need. Freezer stash is like an emergency stash, and I just love these moms who come in and they've got, like, they went and bought a whole new freezer because they freeze an entire supply of milk for I don't know who they're feeding, but, like, you know, that milk's not what you want to use, okay? The milk in the freezer is something that eventually you hope to toss because it's not as good as fresh milk. It's not as good as refrigerated milk. It's great in an emergency because it's better than using formula, but you don't want to freeze too much of it because the chances are that you're going to use it is slim. What I would recommend is that you have somewhere between 10 and 12 feedings in the freezer for an emergency stash, okay? So let's just get that out of the way first when we talk about freezer supply. But if you're having trouble expressing breast milk, especially if, and there was another question that came in and said, you know, I'm having trouble pumping, but my baby has no trouble getting the milk out. So obviously it's there. If you're having trouble pumping, one of the things to look at is the flange on your breast pump. That's the piece that goes around your breast, that it goes right up against the breast. Is the flange big enough, okay? Because sometimes what can cause milk to not express easily is that the flange is not big enough for your nipple. And it really doesn't, what I found, it doesn't have much to do with the size of your breast. It's how much of the nipple is being taken into the flange. So what I would do first is try switching out the flanges. And then if you're trying to pump both sides at the same time, you may want to switch to only pumping one side at a time. And while you're pumping, kind of compress and hand express at the same time. I know I had to do that in order to get milk out. I had a very hard time pumping both sides at the same time and dividing the suction on the pump. And I also needed to hand express at the same time that I was pumping. So hopefully that's going to help. A hospital grade rental pump definitely will help. It definitely cycles a little bit better for you. I definitely recommend it when moms are exclusively pumping because it will help to get the milk out much quicker, okay? And you can usually rent them from your local hospital or from a store that rents breast pumps, okay? So hopefully that answered your question today. Okay, another question came in. How are we doing over there? Oh, we got a question. Let's see, we've got a live question here. Okay, all right. Okay, so Katie Pickles, this is a live question. We'll take one live question here. Okay, my baby is 10 months old, and if I don't have any pump milk, what could be the next thing in a pinch? Formula, goat's, cow's milk, almond milk, etc. at 10 months old. I have to say that it depends on how much you're talking about supplementing. I know when my baby hit around 10 months old, what I did was I used a little bit of rice milk. The baby was eating rice cereal. I used a little bit of organic rice milk, and I was feeding solids. So, you know, depending on what you're talking about, if you're leaving your baby for 3 days, obviously you can't do that. You're going to need to use some type of formula, and then probably the organic formula is going to be your best choice. But if we're talking about one feeding or just to keep the baby hydrated, then probably you could go with a rice milk just to do some hydration for the baby. So not a problem. I guess I need a little more information to be able to answer that question. If you can get back to me, just tell me how long you're actually leaving the baby. I could probably answer it better for you. But thank you, Katie Pickles. Like that name. Okay, so let's see. Ashley in Indiana, okay, wrote in to ask a question. When introducing solids, does their poop change? And if so, how is it supposed to look? Yes, their poop is going to change. For all of you experienced mothers out there, those breast milk poop days are over. I will never forget. Okay, so when you're breastfeeding, the poop is yellow, seedy, non-stinky, you know, very, very not bad, okay? And then I remember the first meal my child ate at 6 months old, and opening that diaper up and just going, oh my God, okay, like this is real poop now, okay? So it's gonna turn into real poop. As soon as you start to feed solids, you are going to start to see real poop coming out of your baby. Those days are over. So that's something really funny to witness. I didn't expect it myself, but there we go. Okay, let's see. So here we go. Jennifer in Texas, okay? How can you make pumping at work faster and more efficient? Pumping at work. Okay, so I pumped at work with both kids, okay? With the first one, I was on call as a midwife, and so I was running out in the middle of the night to the hospital with no set schedule. It was not easy. It was a true commitment for us to exclusively breastfeed, and there were times where I didn't have enough pump milk because obviously my schedule was very different. I couldn't plan for it, and there were times where Joe had to drive the baby up in the middle of the night to the emergency room parking lot. He's laughing because he remembers those nights of driving up.
Drive-by feeding?
Drive-by feeding. They were literally drive-by feedings. I mean, we ran out of breast milk, and I'm gone at 2 in the morning, and I don't know when I'm coming back, and I'd like put that kid in the car and bring her to me, all right? I would run down and breastfeed. But for most of you, that's not the issue, not the concern. You do have a regular schedule and you know how much you need to feed. But Jennifer wants to know, how do I make it work faster and more efficient? One of the things I would recommend is make sure that you have a really high quality pump, okay? That's very important. This is not where you cheap out. You get the best pump possible to make sure that you can mimic as much as you can to your baby's suckling. Nothing gets the milk out like the baby, so just be clear about that. Like, it just can't come out the way the baby does. The baby's way too efficient at it. Make sure that you have the right size flanges like we discussed before. And then I think a couple things that I can tell you that have worked for my clients is that, you know, bringing like one of the baby's, an article of clothing that smells like your baby, your body is really in tune to different senses, and smell is one of them. And I found that when I held my baby's clothes or blanket or maybe the onesie that they wore the night before, it helped to trigger a response in me that helped me with my letdown. Wearing your iPod or listening to some relaxing music, you know, not staring at the clock, that will really help too. And then finding a really quiet, private place to pump. And if you don't have one, you know, I talk about this in my program, Breast Pumps and Briefcases, of even sometimes using your car where you can have some privacy. Having a picture of your baby to look at can be really, really helpful because so much of it is mind-body connection, okay? And that will definitely help. And then one other thing that I've seen that definitely makes the letdown easier, and that's, you know, the initial milk coming out. It's a homeopathic remedy called Rescue Remedy. And when you spray a little bit of this Rescue Remedy in your mouth, it can really cause relaxation, which I've seen to help let down also. So you can try all of those things, and hopefully that's going to work for you. But Jennifer, definitely get the program. You will thoroughly enjoy it and get a lot of information out of it. How are we doing over there with some live questions and anything else to talk about? Do we have a giveaway? Is Jessica on the line there?
I suggest, yeah, but You want a video?
Oh, let's answer. We have to answer a question. We've got, all right, just for the time that it took for Sherwin to ask all these questions, like I have to honor him by answering at least one of his questions tonight. So let's see, what are some of the questions that Sherwin asked me? First of all, he asked me a bunch of questions about cloth diapering, and I'm not going to cover that tonight, but I am definitely bringing that up in one of the next couple episodes, because cloth diapering is another passion of mine. So I think one of the next, maybe the next one or the one after that, we will dedicate to cloth diapering and information on cloth diapering, because stuff people really want to know about. So one of Sherman's questions here, is it Sherwin or it's Sherwin? Excuse me, Sherwin. It's Sherwin. Okay, so one of his questions was, for mothers that are exclusively breastfeeding and working full times, does it make sense to store milk? I read online that it's hard to find a bottle which will not ruin switching back and forth between breastfeeding and bottle feeding. So several brands that mimic natural nipple feeding. What type of feeding bottle is best to use for mothers who are exclusively breastfeeding? That's a very good question. What I found is that if you follow my protocol where you're introducing the bottle early to your baby, most babies will take pretty much any bottle that you offer them. A few things you want to look for when choosing the right bottle for your breastfed baby is try to pick a nipple that's kind of short, okay? If you ever looked at some of these nipples on the bottles, like the Advents and some of the others on the market, they're really long, and like put that up to your anatomy, put that up to your nipple, and ask yourself, is it going to be similar, okay? So you want to try to find something that has a little bit of a shorter nipple and more of a wider base, because that's the way the baby will naturally latch onto the breast. I would go with a slow flow bottle, okay, because the baby is going to need to suck hard and not be overwhelmed with the milk just pouring down, okay? And the other thing too, and this is a huge thing, don't invest in any 8 or 9 ounce bottles, because you'll never use them with breast milk, okay? I think we talked about this last week, and the whole idea that breastfed babies will peak out somewhere about 4 ounces per feeding, and that's about all they eat per feeding for the entire year. So, you know, these 8-9 ounce bottles are really meant for formula, because you do have to feed more and more quantities of formula if you're a formula feeding mom. And for breastfed moms, you could stick to those 4 or 5 ounce bottles, and that's going to be totally sufficient for you. You know, you want to make a decision of whether you're going to go with glass or you're going to go with plastic. Obviously, we all know the BPA is no good in the bottles, but the truth is that all plastic is not that good. When you are breastfeeding, you don't need to continue to sterilize your bottles, okay? Breast milk doesn't grow bacteria the same way that formula does, and I think that was another one of Shervin's questions was, you know, what kind of a sterilizer do I use? And you know, I typically don't recommend microwave sterilizing or boiling your plastic parts too often when you're breastfeeding. Rinsing with hot soapy water into the dishwasher, you know, that's sufficient for breast milk, and I wouldn't break down the plastic. I'd be more concerned about that. So I hope that answered your question. We'll get to some of your other questions. You did a good job there, Sherwin. I'm really proud of you. Awesome. Thank you for all the great questions here. What else? Anything else coming in here that we can answer?
Joyful Bode Fly Navy Wife said, Joe, we've been doing what Shari said with the bottle all week. It took a few days, but my baby's learning how to use it.
Excellent. Good job. I told you, just stick with it. It's going to work. Yes.
It's just a Medela wide base nipples that fit the Medela bottles that work with my nipple slow flow.
Okay, great. So just sticking with it, you know, so many times, and when you watch my program and I talk about introducing the bottle early on, and it's just a half an ounce, it's just once a day, and it's really just to keep your baby introduced to the bottle, because so many breastfed babies, they're really smart. I mean, once they don't get the bottle, they're not going to want it, a lot of them. It's very hard to go back to it. What I would totally recommend is that once they're taking the bottle, make sure that you're consistent with it. You know, I hear it all too often. Well, I did what you said, and the baby was having no problems, so we introduced that little bit of pump milk once a day, and then, you know, they were doing fine, so I just stopped doing it, and now here we are 2 weeks later, I tried again, and my baby won't take a bottle. So I think consistency is really the key here, and now that you're getting the baby to take it, be consistent and stick with it so that the baby continues to take it if that's what you desire. Great job. You did it.
The recurring question
is
regarding, let's see, what about storing milk in plastic freezer bags?
Until they figure out a better way to store milk. I don't know about, I wouldn't freeze in glass. It's probably not your first choice is to freeze in glass with any kind of cracking issues. We do have other things on the market. There's bags and there's something called Snappies that are plastic containers that you can freeze in. But most of what I've seen for freezing is in plastic, which is why I recommend it as your emergency stash, okay? I want you to try to get your milk fresh, whether it's fresh because you're breastfeeding at the breast, fresh because you pumped it that week. Remember, breast milk is really stable. It's going to be good in the refrigerator for up to a week. So depending on, the milk that you pump the day before when you go to work, that's the milk that you're going to feed your baby the next day. It does not need to be frozen. So don't freeze too much milk. And then, yeah, I don't know about freezing in glass bottles. I probably wouldn't recommend it. We haven't come up with something better yet. I have a question here that I want to go over that somebody submitted that I thought was really great to hear. Her question, this was from Stephanie in Ohio. Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for the question. I am a plus size, and I have been scheduled for a C-section in 14 days. I really want to make breastfeeding work this time since my other child, who's 9 years old, I exclusively pumped for 10 months. My gosh, amazing. Hats off. That is one of the hardest things that you can do, and I really give you credit for that. Due to the fact that she was a preemie. I really want to have the exclusive breastfeeding experience, though, and I've noticed that most plus-size moms end up being told to use the football hold instead of the cross-cradle hold. The football hold never worked for my preemie, and I was never told to try any other way. Any suggestions? I have a lot of plus size moms who come in and they say, well, the pillow's not going to fit around me. And that's not true. I mean, the breast friend pillow is fully adjustable. And I'm still going to say to you, go back to that breast friend pillow and make it work. Even if you have to extend the Velcro all the way out, just keep that pillow out in front of you and use the cross cradle position, especially with your newborn. Go back to my DVD program and make sure that you are following my technique, because I agree. I don't think the football hold works for a lot of moms. Yes, there's some out there who are going to say, yes, it works fine. For the moms that I work with, I don't have that much success, and obviously that's been the case for you. But the breast friend pillow I've seen is pretty big, and it will fit a large size woman. So I don't know if you have that pillow. I would try that and use the extension on it.
Another question?
Yeah, another question.
Going
Thank
crazy
you.
With twins?
Yes. Oh, going crazy with twins. Yes.
If my babies are sleeping more, should I pump in between feedings?
Oh God, no. Okay, so if your babies are sleeping more, do you want to pump more? No, you want to sleep more, right? Why would you pump? Okay, unless you don't have a freezer stash, okay, and that would be a good time to start supplying a little bit up in the freezer. Remember, not too much, but you want your milk supply to be exactly the same as to what your babies are eating. You don't want to oversupply yourself. Too little milk is not good and too much milk is not good. And so if your babies are starting to sleep through the night, then you want to start to decrease your supply too, so that you can sleep through the night. That's one of the advantages of them sleeping. So you don't want to get up and pump. Was that the question that she was asking?
Should I pump between feedings?
Yeah, no, don't pump between feedings. You probably won't get anything out either. Your babies are probably completely draining you, and then you want to have that milk for them when they do wake up so that you can feed them. Your body's going to adjust exactly to what your baby needs to eat, and your babies in this case need to eat, and you want to stick to that routine. Remember, it's supply and demand, and you don't need to pump in between feedings. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
If a breastfeeding baby only eats 4 ounces per feeding,
yes.
How come my baby is still hungry and we eat 4 ounces of formula after a full feeding?
Okay,
Banana sock muffins.
Banana sock muffins. I remember this. Great to see you. I saw you. We heard that name last week, right? What's your real first name? I need to know. Okay, but banana sock muffins. Okay, so. A baby, first of all, how do you know the baby's eating 4 ounces at the breast is my question. So how do you know how much you're feeding at the breast? So you can answer that to Joe, and Joe will tell that to me. I'm sorry?
Her name's Amy.
Amy. Okay, great, Amy. All right, it's a little easier to say. So Amy, we don't know if you are actually feeding 4 ounces from the breast. Obviously, we can't see it, so we don't know. And then why will your baby take 4 ounces of formula? Okay. The baby will continue to drink as much as you pour into it, okay? And this is one of the problems with bottle feeding. We all have heard stories about the idea that, and the research that's out there that says that formula feeding can increase your baby's risk of obesity. But a recent study also said that it wasn't just formula feeding that increase the baby's risk of obesity, it was also breast milk in a bottle. So there's something about bottle feeding that increases their risk of obesity. And what you don't want to do is overfill your baby. Baby has a very strong need to suck. And so when you put that bottle in their mouth, yes, they're going to drain it, okay? If they're crying coming off the breast, lots of times they're crying for something else. And that's what I see. I teach some soothing techniques and, infant calming techniques that help with, we're going to get into that too in another episode, but swaddling techniques that will help to calm your baby. And you can really distinguish whether it's hunger or just fussiness where they want to be swaddled and held, okay? Because it's hard to tell sometimes. Babies have a small vocabulary. They cry for everything, and most moms, when they hear their baby cry, what they'll think is, my baby's still hungry. And then, of course, you lead right to the bottle, and you pour 4 ounces in, and you go, see, now they are, like, in a milk coma, and you go, they were hungry. But what this does is it doesn't allow their brain to train and let them know when they feel fullness. And what they've seen is in those early months, in the first 6 months of overfeeding a baby with a bottle, we find that those babies tend to eat more when they finally do start eating solids and have a higher risk of obesity. So you don't want to do that. Does she tell me how much the babies get, how she knows the baby's getting enough breast milk? No? Okay.
Let's see.
We'll get back to that, Amy. Okay. I think it's time to draw the winner. Right?
We can.
Do we have a winner? Who's drawing the winner tonight? Is Jessica on the line? Is she going to draw the winner for us? Let me show you what the prizes are first. Okay. So we've got the Breast Friend pillow. Okay, one of my favorite things. This is the must-have. Okay, so if you win this and you already have one, pass it along, pass it forward to a new nursing mom because they're going to need this in order to breastfeed. It's going to be very, very helpful, and you take this with you to the hospital. Okay, one of your most important products in breastfeeding. And we're going to also be giving away the new Breast Friend adjustable nursing stool. And what I really love about this new stool is that it's adjustable so that, I like things that have dual use, okay? And what that means is you're going to use it for breastfeeding, but then after you're done breastfeeding, you're going to be able to flatten it out, and it will be a step stool for your child. So you can use it for years and years, and it also has treads on it so you're not slipping off the stool. So it's a really good product. I've been selling a ton of them in my store, and everyone loves it. And if you don't know what a nursing stool is for, I'll tell you right now, bending your knees higher than your hips is extremely important to take the pressure off your lower back. So most moms, when they're sitting there nursing, they're going up on their toes, and they don't know why they feel like they need to draw their knees up, because it puts you in a more comfortable position. It will sit you upright so you're not leaning over, and it will take that pressure off your lower back. So between the pillow and the stool, my Breast Friend has created the perfect positioning for you, and they are a great company, and we love them very much. So, do we have a winner?
Yeah, I'm asking everybody for a drum roll.
Drum roll. Who's our winner tonight? Yes?
And the winner for tonight.
And the winner for tonight is...
They're still drum rolling.
We're still drum rolling.
Diane T.
Diane T. From where? Where's Diane from? Oh, is it from New Jersey? Diane T. from New Jersey? I think so. I have her in front of me here. Is Diane on the line? Diane, are you there to win your prize? You have to be
She's
here.
saying, woohoo, that's me.
That's you. Congratulations. You won. You won. And I don't know if you guys know this, but if you keep RSVPing the way these guys did, and you don't have to ask a question to RSVP, just make sure you RSVP, because if you RSVP 5 out of the 8 episodes, and we're already up to episode 2, then you are eligible to be into our grand prize drawing at the end of 8 weeks, and we've got some really big surprises for you coming up. It's going to be major. There's some big prize to give away. I'm not announcing it yet. I'm keeping it a secret. Just trust me, okay? When I give away something good, it's going to be good. So you make sure that you RSVP because you want to be a part of that. I think I want to be a part of that. I don't think I'm allowed to. It's probably in the rules here that I can't be a part of it. But anyway, I think we're coming to the conclusion of the night tonight. I hope this was helpful for you. I can't tell you what an honor and privilege it is to spend time with all of you, and you guys are amazing. Wanting to learn more, to better yourself as parents, to do the very best for your children. And I honor every one of you, whatever your choices are. Take the time to really enjoy your little babies, okay? They grow up fast. My children are 6 and 8, and I was watching some home movies yesterday, and it just really reminded me how fast and quickly time goes by. So enjoy your babies tonight, and please come back and visit with us next week. Oh, another reminder, my Simply Breastfeeding DVD program is only going to be free until September 30th, which is what, Thursday?
Yes.
Thursday night at midnight. Thursday, it is going to switch over to a pay-per-view watching, okay? So if you have moms out there who still haven't watched the program, you can send them over, and there's a few more days left to watch the program for free. After that, we still will be offering it as a streaming download so that you don't have to get the DVD itself, but the program is going to be pay-per-view at that point, okay? So send your mommies over there to watch. And one more announcement, and I want Janet to put this up on the resource page. I'm part of a big teleseminar called The Great Parenting Show, and I've been listening, and I've been getting some amazing advice. It's 24 of the top experts in the country. October 19th is my episode, so if you'd all cheer me on and come on and listen, I would really appreciate it. Follow the link and sign up. It's free to listen, and some really great replays and downloads, and it just really gives you good information about toddler and as they get older too. But that's going to be on October 19th, okay? So I hope to see you all there. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you soon. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.